Sienna Delacroix had landed at Incheon before. She knew the particular tiredness of that flight, the way 14 hours folded a person into someone quieter than they started out, someone who noticed the small things because the large things had all been packed away for the trip. She knew the smell of the terminal, recycled air, and duty-free perfume. She knew the exact cadence of the announcement chime, 3 notes that meant nothing and everything at once. What she did not expect was her own hand, unbidden, going to her coat pocket to check that the note was still there. It was. It had been there through customs in Houston and a layover in Tokyo, and now here, folded into the same soft rectangle it had been for 6 weeks, and she still had not decided what that meant about her. She did not look for him. She told herself this twice, which was one time more than a person who meant it needed to. The escalator carried her down into the arrivals hall, into the particular chaos of 100 reunions happening at once, placards with names on them, children running at grandparents, a man in a business suit crying without apology into his wife's shoulder. Sienna watched all of it, the way she watched everything, cataloging without meaning to. She had built a career on the instinct. She had never quite managed to turn it off for herself. No one was waiting for her. She had told Minji not to send a car, had told the hotel she'd arrange her own transport, had told herself, twice more for good measure, that this was simply easier. She caught a cab at the curb. The city unrolled past the window in the particular gray-gold light of a Seoul afternoon, and something in her chest, unbidden as her hand at her pocket, eased. 6 weeks had passed since the folded note and the window seat and the smile she'd let herself have because no one back home would ever know she'd had it. 6 weeks of New Orleans, of her aunt's kitchen thick with the smell of red beans on a Monday, of the unfinished suit on its stand in the front room catching afternoon light through the shutters, of Phase 2 sitting in her inbox like a question she'd already answered by signing it. Hanryo Group wanted her back for 18 more weeks. The old guard on the board had not gone quietly after the reckoning that closed her first engagement, but they had gone, and what remained was an organization that had tasted a different way of being led and wanted, cautiously, more of it. Sienna wanted to be the kind of woman who took the contract for the contract's sake, the work itself, the diagnostic, the slow patient dismantling of fear disguised as policy. She was mostly that woman. Mostly. The other 6 weeks, the ones that had nothing to do with Hanryo, she had spent in a private negotiation with herself that she had not fully won. A man had asked her a question at an airport without asking it, had handed her 4 words folded into a note instead of the sentence that would have made everything simpler and infinitely more complicated. She had not answered him yet. She was flying 8,000 miles to not answer him in person. Kwon Min-ji met her at the elevator with 2 coffees and no small talk, which was one of several reasons Sienna had come to trust her before trusting almost anyone else in this building. The board approved the Phase 2 scope in 11 minutes, Min-ji said, falling into step beside her. The chairman didn't speak once. Was that unusual, Sienna asked, or was that Tuesday? Min-ji almost smiled. With him, it's never just Tuesday some. He read the entire scope document beforehand. Highlighted things. Chairman Yoon does not highlight things, Dr. Delacroix. Chairman Yoon delegates the highlighting. Sienna filed that away without comment, the way she filed everything that told her more than it meant to. Her corner office had been kept for her, untouched, which told her something about how this company now thought of her. Not as a vendor passing through, but as a fixture, the way a support beam is a fixture, unglamorous, load-bearing, easy to forget about until it's gone. The morning moved the way her mornings in Seoul always moved once she was back inside the machinery of it. Interviews with the culture committee, a walkthrough of the retention data since the last engagement, a young analyst named Jun Ho, who had been terrified of her that first engagement, and now brought her his own diagnostic notes unprompted, hopeful, and a little proud. She told him 3 of his 4 observations were sharp. She meant it. He beamed like she'd handed him something rarer than praise, which, in a building that had spent years teaching its people fear was the only honest currency, she supposed she had. You're building something here, Junho, she told him. Keep noticing what other people are too scared to say out loud. That's the whole job. By noon, she had almost stopped checking the calendar. Almost. Jae-Won had known her flight number for 9 days. He had not gone to the airport. This had cost him something Sung-hyun did not fully appreciate until he saw the chairman check his phone for the fourth time in a meeting about a logistics acquisition that, under ordinary circumstances, would have commanded his full and terrifying attention. "She landed 40 minutes ago," Sung-hyun said finally, not looking up from his tablet, in the flat tone of a man delivering a fact he had been asked, repeatedly and without words, to deliver. "I wasn't asking. You didn't have to." Jae-won had spent 6 weeks building a version of patience he had never needed before. He was, he privately admitted, not very good at it yet. He had run an empire on the principle that waiting was a weapon other people used against you, never one you used against yourself. Waiting for Sienna Delacroix to decide what she wanted from him felt some days like holding his breath underwater and being told the surface was optional. He had not gone to the airport because he understood, with the particular clarity he brought to every decision that mattered, that arriving at Incheon with flowers and expectation would undo 6 months of teaching her that his interest in her did not require her to perform gratitude for it. He would let her arrive on her own terms. He would let her come to him if she came at all. The acquisition meeting ended, but he did not remember agreeing to the terms, though the transcript would later show he had articulately negotiated 2 points in the company's favor without appearing to have been anywhere but fully present. It was a skill he had spent a lifetime perfecting, being elsewhere while looking entirely here. You could simply text her," Sung-hyun said afterward in the tone of a man who had decided the risk of saying the obvious thing outweighed the risk of the chairman's silence. "I could, but you won't. Not yet. She left something unanswered at that airport. I intend to let her be the one who answers it, in her own time, or not at all. Anything else would be asking her for reassurance I have no right to ask for." Yeah. Sung-hyun studied him a moment, the man who had once told a rival to leave the country or lose a hand and had not raised his voice either time, and found, not for the first time this year, that he no longer entirely recognized his chairman. He decided, also not for the first time, that he preferred this version. If you're the kind of person who checks a coat pocket for something you're not ready to admit you're carrying, hit subscribe. You're exactly who this story is for. She had not told him where she was staying this trip. She had also not changed hotels. Some part of her understood this was its own kind of message and sent it anyway, the way a woman leaves a porch light on for someone she has told herself she isn't expecting.
I didn't think you'd be here.
Neither did I.
He was at the bar when she came down for a late dinner she had not truly wanted, only needed an excuse to leave her room before the room's silence started asking questions she didn't want to answer alone. He did not stand. He did not perform surprise. He simply turned his glass a quarter turn on the marble, the way a man makes room at a table without saying so. "You didn't come to the airport," she said, sitting 2 stools away, closer than the first time, further than either of them wanted. "I know how you feel about being found before you've decided to be found." She looked at him for a long moment. Something in her chest, which she had kept carefully governed for 6 weeks, declined to be governed any further. "That's either the most respectful thing a man's ever done for me," she said, "or the most calculated. I haven't decided which." Does it have to be only one? The bartender, the same one, Declan's man, though neither of them knew to think of him that way yet, set down 2 glasses of something amber without being asked, and retreated to the far end of the bar with the particular tact of a man who had learned over months of watching this exact pairing, exactly how much space to give it. "Welcome back, Mr. Yoon," she said, lifting the glass an inch, not quite a toast. "Try not to make it a habit knowing me this well." "Too late," he said. It was the most honest thing he had said to her yet, and they both heard the weight land. "I saw." They talked for a while about nothing that mattered. The Phase 2 scope, a construction delay on a Yoon Capital Hotel project in Busan, a mutual and mild disdain for a particular strain of Seoul traffic. It was the easiest conversation they had ever had, and Sienna understood, watching him actually laugh, a sound she had heard perhaps twice before. That ease was its own kind of danger for a man who had built his entire life on not needing anyone. I read a great deal into 4 words, Mr. Yoon, she said finally, setting her glass down with the careful precision of a woman choosing her moment. I want you to know that. I wrote a great deal into them. 11 drafts, if you're curious. The 12th was the only one honest enough to send. I'm not ready to tell you what I decided they meant. I didn't ask you to be. In her coat pocket upstairs, the note sat folded exactly as it had for 6 weeks. She had never told him she still had it. She was starting to suspect he already knew, not because he'd asked, but because he had the particular stillness of a man who had learned, over a lifetime of reading rooms for danger, to read a woman for hope instead, and found, in her, more of it than he'd expected to find anywhere. That's this episode of Whiskey and More. If you're new here, welcome. Hit subscribe so you don't lose your place. Next episode, The Note. Trust me, you don't want to miss it.